All right. So, Domenica, is it Escatel?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm saying it correctly.
Okay, you got it.
So basically, how it's gonna work is at the very beginning, I have my wine.
Okay.
So if you have your wine, then you say we'll talk about like this is the wine I'm drinking, this is the wine you're drinking. We always get to the wine before we get to the chisme.
Okay.
We'll probably touch a little bit on what's happening right now.
Right.
Obviously, because where are you from? And I'm gonna actually ask are you from Modesto?
Yeah. Yes, I'm from Modesto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, I live like 5 minutes outside of Modesto in a little town called Empire.
Okay.
It's one of those towns where you blink and you're in Modesto.
Is that considered Central Valley or Bay Area?
Central Valley.
Okay. Making sure.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So let me go grab my wine. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. Sí, por eso vine. Hey girl, I am good here.
All right. So, we'll go over a bunch of questions and everything, and then, if for some reason there's anything that you say that you're like, ooh, maybe I can edit that out. I try to edit as little as possible, only if we're
Okay.
only like long pauses or if we're saying or using a filler word a lot. I try and condense that, but otherwise, I try and like just let it go. So,
Okay, sounds good.
I just, Domenica Escatel, I just need to have your permission to record this podcast and be able to broadcast it on the Wine and Chisme podcast. Do you give me your permission?
100%.
All right. So,
yes.
Domenica, how are you today?
Doing fabulous. Thank you.
It's so wonderful to see your face, even if it's on Zoom, because of everything that's going on right now.
I know I am absolutely loving technology right now and being able to still connect this way.
Isn't it the craziest thing though? I mean, I almost feel like it's, and I probably already said this on another podcast, but I feel like it's God's and Mother Earth's way of just telling us like we're not listening. We're, destroying what they have provided. And it's kind of their way of healing itself because, if you're a Christian or if you know the Bible, you know that there was several reasons why God started all over, but it was really because man was destroying what he has created, right? In many different ways with the floods and Noah's Ark and everything. And I kind of feel like this is a different way of that, not as because it is affecting the whole world. So I don't know. That's how I feel. But at least I get to do this. I get to see people with the podcast, which is huge for me because I need human connection. How has it been for you?
Completely. Oh, definitely. I knew I was a people person, but I didn't realize I was that much of a people person where I needed connection until the quarantine happened.
Right.
And so I've been trying to get creative on how to check in with friends and do virtual coffee dates, but I completely understand what you're saying. I really feel that our earth is resetting itself and it's an opportunity to just be in the moment, be present with those that we love, and be able to form additional connections that otherwise, if we didn't slow down, we wouldn't have had that opportunity to do.
I know. It's so crazy. So, well, before we get into the chisme,
all right,
we must get to the wine, of course. So today, I am drinking a 2017 Cabernet Sauvignon. It's called the Dreaming Tree.
Oh.
And I got it at Trader Joe's. Now, I think they accidentally didn't charge me for it.
Okay.
Well, I was looking on because I like to tell people like the price point of things.
Right.
And I didn't see it on my receipt, but I spent so much on groceries so I wouldn't have to
Yeah.
for a while that I didn't even notice until I looked on my receipt this morning to try and find the price. But it's definitely not over $10. I know that. So what are you drinking today?
Okay, well, I think we're going to be similar in that I cannot tell you how much it was because it was a gift, but it's a Chardonnay. It's from 2017, and it's from Missouri Winery in here in California. And so,
Missouri. Missouri,
yeah,
California? Or it's the winery's
yeah,
called
it's
Missouri.
so that's the name of the wine, and it was the first time that I drank it, and let me tell you, it's so good.
Oh, okay. Well, salud. Let's take a drink of our wines.
Yes, cheers, salud.
Ooh, this is good. It's not too heavy. I like it because we're kind of doing this before noon, but we're on quarantine, so who cares?
You know what? There's no rules right now.
There are no rules right now.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, and I'm gonna go with that.
That's right. That is true. And but I like this because it's really, especially right now, being kind of early, you're hesitant of what what to drink. But this is really light. I really like this. It's not too
Right.
heavy because sometimes you want like a heavier wine, especially nighttime. I feel like, but right now it's warm here. It's beautiful outside today. I already went for a walk, and this is like perfect. So I don't feel heavy.
Yeah, mine's nice and smooth. I'm a more fan of the sweet wines, and so the Chardonnay tends to be a little bit drier. But when I was given this one as a gift, I thought, okay, I'll try it. Oh, it's one of my favorites now. It's nice, smooth, and it's perfect for our nice sunny weather as well. So
Oh.
I'm enjoying it.
So you are in Central California. You're in the Modesto area.
Yes,
So how is that's where you grew up, correct?
yes.
How would you describe growing up in that area? Because isn't that very like I mean, when I think of that area, I've never really been to Modesto or in
Okay.
that area. I really think of like farm workers. I think of farming communities. Like, how is that area and how was it growing up there?
Well, I have to agree with that perception completely. It's a lot of agriculture. I have family that lives in Newman, California. It's about an hour from Modesto. And so growing up, I enjoyed going to Newman and seeing the big fields and enjoying the farm workers picking the fruit that we eat on our table. There's definitely a lot of amazing things that happen in this community as a result of living in the area that we are. Like, we have a lot of dairies. I can go hit up a local dairy, get some milk from them, go to an egg farm, get eggs from there. It definitely still has the feel of a community where you can knock on somebody's door and get a cup of sugar, or call your comadre and have them come over, drink some cafecito. It's a beautiful community. We have our own hashtag.
Oh, what is that hashtag?
We do Glorious Modesto.
Nice.
Right, yeah. So there's this whole movement right now that is happening with some amazing people that I happen to know, and they started their own hashtag. And because this community has very creative people, I can think of two different companies that have produced video that just put out there a love letter to Modesto. So that's always fun to see those type of things. Our Modesto Police Department just put a video community love letter out as well during this hard time. So that was fantastic to see local businesses saying, I love you, Modesto. It's just something so special about living out here.
Nice. So are you how many do you have any brothers and sisters? How were you guys like were you guys kind of always like have I think I've previously mentioned in another podcast that my grandpa he actually used to supervise the and used to work and supervise the workers in the North County San Diego area for picking avocados and citrus and stuff like that, and I even remember that from when I was little. So I feel like it gives you a totally different perspective in regards to agriculture workers and the hard work that goes into that. Did you have and then I used to like want to pick those things. Can I take stuff home? Like
Right.
is that like do you have brothers and sisters that you guys would kind of do that or did you have family that was into that or what Like, kind of how was the family dynamic growing up there?
Okay, so yes, definitely. So I have to say that my mom's side of the family, her dad, my grandpa, would migrate every season from Mexico, and he would come and work predominant farms out here in actually in Newman and Patterson, um, and so they would do watermelons, tomatoes, peaches, oranges. Like I can think of every single fruit, and they would harvest it. And my mom, she migrated here when she was 16, and she started working in the fields. And so I have very early memories of going to the farms that my grandpa and my uncle, the only uncle that my mom has, and he'd invite us to go and pick the fruit that we want or the veggies. And so that was a really fun memories. And so I only have one sister. And so my family is a family of four: my mom, dad, myself, and my sister. And so every time we would go and visit family in that area, we definitely stop at my uncle's house to get that fruit and veggies. And so anytime anyone, talks about farm workers, I have special memories. And, it's something personal to me and something that I have developed in my personal mission statement where I say that, I try to live my life in the way to honor the struggle that my mom and her family faced by only being able to be a part of that field. The opportunities that they had were minimal, but also when I think of the opportunity that they had to feed the families of this state, it just blows my mind.
Wow. That, I mean, yeah, because I feel very personal in connection with that because
Mhm.
of my grandpa, but to see your mom go through that, that's, I feel like even a whole nother level of that. So growing up, how was your mom with you? Was she some, because I mean, I feel like that can make you as a woman or as a person, but particularly a woman. I feel like that can really kind of toughen you up, but also really making sure that your kids have opportunity. So how was your mom able to, or how do you feel like your mom was able to kind of have that type of background, but then also be the mom that you needed her to be, or was she able to be the mom you needed her to be?
So I have to say that she started working in the cannery probably as young as maybe age 20. And so when she retired, she probably had about 40 years in the industry. And so the only reason she retired was because she was losing her hearing because of all the machinery inside the cannery. And it was a blessing in the way because she was able to step back from all those years of manual labor and standing on her feet, and the stories that she would tell me that would happen in the cannery. It just made me have such a stronger drive, but also be aware that she would work hours in the evening to be able to be at home with us in the morning. And so she did that for so many years. So I don't feel like I missed an opportunity to be with her because she always found a way to work, to provide food for us and shelter. And with my dad, he landed in a industry in construction, that is hard. It's a hard labor, and also used his hands a lot. And so they both alternated work schedules. So one parent was always there, but mainly it was, my mom. She would be there in the morning, and she would take us to school, or our school's actually about 3 blocks away from where I live. And so I have memories of just walking there. So that was always fantastic. But really, where it became a challenge was when I got a little bit older and was at that peak of going to college, because being a first generation college graduate, I had to find resources to help me. I didn't know how to navigate the system, and I had to explain why I wanted to go to school. And I knew that if I wanted to break that cycle of living paycheck to paycheck, I had to put my education first. But, however, I think for my mom especially, it was hard for her to understand, because all she knew was, cannery and field worker, and then she only has a second grade education herself.
So you're talking about growing up, and I want to go back to that in a moment. When you growing up, where did you feel like you fit in as far as school and friends? Is that something that was a lot of people were going through, that you were able to share similar experiences, or did you feel left out? And how did that like kind of come into play just as growing up?
So I always have to kind of compare it to Selena. You know that specific scene where her dad says, "Ni soy de allá ni de acá."
Yes.
I'm sure the quote was more eloquent, but that's in my brain. That's how I attributed it. Like it just, it was hard to relate to my community, and then it was hard to relate to my roots. And so, where do you attach yourself? Where do you start to grow that pride? Um, and so, I would have friends that would leave for the season, and we would go back to Mexico once the farm worker season ended. And so that was hard to see. And then I felt like an outsider because my family didn't leave. We lived here. I was born here, but I was familiar with that, how it worked, because I still had cousins that would do that. And so growing up, it was really difficult because I remember in high school, especially, I would be told, "Oh no, you're too whitewashed," or "No, you don't understand. Like our family's going to Mexico for the winter. You don't even know what that is." Like I would always be made to feel less than, which was really hard because that's my people. That
Yeah.
is who my foundation is built on, and that's who I grew up seeing. But how do you relate when in a sense they're right, because I didn't know what that was to leave for a season and go home. And I'm using air quotes because I feel like ultimately where we live is where our family is. And um, so that was hard. And then our community, we have a migrant labor camp that was like behind my house. And so the school where I went to had a lot of its population was seasonal population where they would just leave and come back. And so that was really hard to feel like I would fit in.
Oh my gosh. I can relate to that in a little, like slightly, just because where I grew up, it wasn't that my friends would leave for a season, but they would leave to go see their family in Mexico over the
Right.
summers. And most of my family, like my distant family, is still in Mexico, but most of my family is here in California. And I always was like, well, I want to go see family in Mexico. Who do I
Right.
have? It was like, but my family's here. What am I going to do? So, I but I feel the same. Like my foundation, my roots of who I am and where I come from Mexico. And so I would always feel this disconnect too with some of my friends as much, and I would get some friends, and I've actually had it older than I did younger, where some of my friends would say, "You're not a real Mexican."
Yes.
And you're just like, well, I'm Chicana, I'm Latina, I'm Mexican American. Like, what makes me any less than you just because of just because my Spanish isn't as good? So
Right.
I get that to a certain extent, because my friends wouldn't leave for like a long period, but they would leave for summertime and come back with all these really cool stories of Mexico, and I never had that.
Right. I know it's interesting when I get asked, "Oh, what part of Mexico are you from?" That's always the question. And I said, "Oh, well," I said, "I'm from here, but my family is from, Zamora, and that's my mother. That's where she's from, and my dad's from San Luis Potosí." And so they're like, "Well, have you gone there?" And I have trouble answering that question because no, I haven't. Because eventually, all their family is here in the United States, and so the farthest that I've been in Mexico is actually going to family vacations when we were younger and hitting Tijuana and Ensenada, and we never dove in to Mexico and the heart of it, and being able to see where my parents were born because they no longer had family over there.
Yeah. That's so crazy. You never know what extended family you might have, like if you do like a 23 or something. Who knows what you'll
Right.
find? So,
And it's funny because I am sure that there is still family over there. I am absolutely certain because my grandpa, up until he passed, he lived over there. And so I think it's just a matter of taking a trip down there and having, my mom or my dad reconnect with people that they lost touch with.
yeah.
So,
So that's so crazy. I love that though, because I can truly relate. And I'm sure there are a ton of people who can relate to that as well.
right.
Um, so growing up, what was your dream? Who did you think you wanted to be when you grew up as a little girl? What did you want to be when you were a little girl?
Well, I feel like I wanted to be everything. It was so hard for me to hone in on something that I really loved because I was super creative. I've always been creative. I love painting, I love photography. I love just being curious. And so I grew up wanting to be a pediatrician. So for the longest time, I wanted to deliver babies, I wanted to take care of kids. But unfortunately, as I grew older, I realized what that really meant a large student loan.
Oh,
And,
right?
right, yes. And that meant trying to figure out how to get myself to a UC and medical school. And ultimately, I got really discouraged, but I don't feel like it was a dream that I let go of. I feel like I was rerouted into something else. And so my thought was with my education that I would go to our local junior college here at Modesto Junior College, and that I would take classes that would be a lot cheaper than starting to go to straight out a 4 year college. So I did that, and because I worked a full time job in order to pay for it, it took a little bit longer than normal. So it took about 3 years before I was able to transfer. And then I started to ask myself, what is it do I like? And my interest was no longer in the medical field. And so I really enjoyed a photography class. And San Jose State University had a great program. And so eventually that's where I ended up transferring. Um, my thought was to be in journalism, maybe graphic design, but I ended up majoring in just photography and art education. And so while I was in the Bay Area, I did a lot of art shows and I loved it. I absolutely loved having a Friday night reveal of the art that I did, the photos that I took, and be able to capture some of those stories visually that I lived. And so I love taking photos of, my mom, her sisters, my grandma, friends, like I call it street photography, just in the moment living life. And so that's really what I became passionate about. And then I knew there wasn't a lot of Latinas in the industry. So that was fun to be able to say, hey, I'm a Latina photographer.
That is awesome. When you were doing that, what did your family think of you doing that? And then were they able to kind of go to any of the shows to see the gravity of what you were doing? Like, oh my gosh, wow, this is really cool.
So, I have very traditional parents. And so I had
So that
mentioned
means
earlier,
no.
yeah, right? Very. And it was very, very hard to, one, go to school, period, And so being only 2 hours away, which is not that far, right?
No.
It would have been very easy for them to come, but my dad was very stubborn. He just didn't want to come and support. And he said, that's your thing. He would continue to work and be at home. And unfortunately, I didn't get that support from them, and because my mom was so honoring my dad and what he wanted, it wasn't like she was able to drive a car to go see me. And a lot of the times what would happen is that I would go and drive to Modesto from San Jose, go pick up my sister, have her be in San Jose on the weekend with me, and then she would come and enjoy, my art shows with me, and we would spend time together. So that was really a sweet moment in time where I was able to just have her for the weekend, and she would enjoy doing that with me.
What was your sister's thoughts on what you were doing? I'm assuming she's younger than you?
She's younger. Yeah, she's 5 years younger. So I think the fact that she was able to stay with her older sister, and then at the time I was living in a sorority. So can you imagine being in high school and being able to see that perspective of, staying in your sister's dorm room at the sorority? Well, I guess at the sorority house, they don't call it a dorm room, but we had about 50 young girls living in that house. It was about a block long. It was a very big house. It had about 30 rooms. And so it really felt like the summer party every day.
Were
So
you a
she got
Gamma?
to Delta Gamma.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so how was that being a sorority? I mean, I would imagine at that time, because that's a Latina sorority, correct? Or no,
No, so
the
actually,
other Gamma is. Sorry, the other.
yes.
I don't want to get it confused. I'm gonna get hate friggin' responses
No,
from
it's all
people.
good. I have to tell you, and that's one of the best examples that I can give you by that I had to navigate the school system. I didn't know there was any Latina sororities. Had I known, I bet I would have had more of a better college experience. So I have to tell you that the only reason I joined a sorority was because their rent was cheaper.
Really?
And yes, and so I thought, okay, this would work. And then they had it cook, and so I'm like, I was just ordering fast food because I didn't even know what to cook because my mom would get so frustrated with me when she would try to teach me something in the kitchen. And so I was screwed, girl. I was screwed.
So how was
And
that navigating that? Because like you said, if you would have known, and it's kind of this weird thing, right? Because it's this thing where we want to be treated equally and we want to have this experience, but at the same time, we all of us, kind of self
right.
segregate into where we feel comfortable. So you didn't have that opportunity. You went into something that was kind of going to also put you in a not in your comfort zone. How was that?
Well, it was difficult because I quickly realized that a lot of the women there had the opportunity to just enjoy college and have that college experience. So I, however, had to work basically Monday through Friday. I got a job really quickly at the student store. Um, I would stuff the potatoes. That was my role in the deli. I was the potato girl. And so you would come to me, bring me your potato, and I would put your toppings. And so I did that for a long time. And then on the weekends, I got a job being a cashier at the San Jose Stadium. And so I was working both jobs. And then because I was young and again didn't know how to navigate the system, I took on a full caseload of 18 units.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, that's so much.
I know. And then, my reasoning behind it was the quickly I can get through school, the less I have to pay. And so that was my mindset. But being a part of the sorority was hard because I realized that um, they were not wanting to connect with me. They would leave me behind because I was studying or I had to go to a job. And so that was really hard. That was hard. And then the five Latinas that were in the sorority had financial aid. And so they had time to go and experience the frat parties, anything that was college life. And then I'd be the one stuck behind because, again, I was either going to one of my jobs or I was studying for a test.
Wow, that's crazy. So with that, and then being, a photography and art education major, that's all about perspective, right? Art is about
Mm-hmm.
perspective. Photography is about perspective. And then you're in this sorority, which I'm sure, how did that, all of those kind of things, and I'm sure all of your other experiences, um, how did that change your perspective, or did it evolve your perspective in regards to the person that you are being a Latina, like kind of all of those things combined, how did that help you frame, change, evolve your perspective?
Well, I think the experience definitely made me more resilient, and it made me more aware of who was around me, and that not everyone was experiencing life like I was. It gave me really an opportunity to be, in a sense, more empathetic, because I wish that people around me would be more empathetic. Because ultimately, my struggle was my struggle, but then nobody knew what I was going through and trying to even be there in the first place. And so it was hard. I remember one year there was a gal in the sorority that invited everyone to her beach house up in Monterey. And so I didn't even want to go into her house because it was too much for me. It was hard to see such a beautiful home, and we had a bonfire at the private beach that she had, and it was fun. I went with them. I got invited, and I was very thankful to be in the crowd in that moment. But then there was an opportunity to take a tour of her house, and I felt almost embarrassed to go in there because the house that I knew back home was like so much smaller than that house. Like I couldn't even think of what her house looked like. And so it was hard, and that was a moment that I took with me, that I've had with me when it comes to being able to honor people's experience and love on them regardless of what they've lived, because it's not her fault. She was wanting to share her home and in this beautiful place that she has access to, while others could have been jealous or envious. I was grateful to be in that space and to get a preview of, if I worked hard, maybe I could have a life like that.
So you were saying how you were um, nobody knew what your experience was. Is that something you always just kept to yourself and didn't ever share with anybody? Because I would imagine that would start to become lonely. How was that? Like, was that throughout your entire college experience? At what point did you finally, or did you ever kind of start sharing that?
Well, I started sharing it, especially with the girls that I kind of fell into the group with at the sorority house, who were the Latinas. But it was still difficult for them to understand where I was coming from, because they had the assistance from the government and I didn't. My Even though my mom worked at the cannery at the time, my dad just had a blue collar job, just working at a local lumber yard cutting wood. Literally, his job was to stand in front of wood and just cut it. But the perspective of going through college and being able to step back and realize that even if I do share it, some people are just not going to understand it, and just to be okay with that. And so when I would say, oh no, I can't go there because I have to go to the second job, um, and that person would get upset, or you just don't want to hang out with us, is usually what I would hear. I'd have to learn. I learned fairly quickly to be okay with that, because at the end of the day, it was me trying to get that degree, and that was the goal, and that was the purpose. And then, especially, I held that very sacredly in a sense, because I was the first one to achieve that degree and that goal. And so it was very hard to keep my eye on the prize, in a sense, because I had all these emotions and distractions, and being 20, you want to go and have fun, but you can't. And till this day, I ask myself, how was I so focused?
I was about to just ask you that because I know so many. I mean, when I went to school later, then because we did some moving and everything, and I went to school in my like in graduated college in my 30s. But I remember when I was 20, I was a friggin' party animal, and I can't even. I mean, maybe had I gone to school at that age, maybe I would have had that focus. I feel like I probably would have split it. And I don't know if I could have been as focused as you. I was that focused when I was in my 30s,
Right.
but being 20, that is like so commendable to have that and to see that vision, because you're just like, I need to make this happen. I have to have, you're not having any help. You're not even getting really any emotional support from your parents. This is like
Right.
all on your own. I think that is so commendable. And I just need to make sure that I let you know that, because I'm sure there are people who can relate to that. And I'm sure that there are people who can relate to, like, holy crap, how the hell did she do that? Because I couldn't have done that. So I think
Right.
to be able to acknowledge that is such a huge thing.
No, thank you. I often tell the story that there'd be times when I would only have $1 in my pocket, and I would go to the student store and I would buy a Napoleon ice cream because it was only 99 cents. And so if I was hungry, that's what I would get. And again, just navigating, I didn't know about any food pantries. Social media was really not existent then. And so San Jose was considered a commuter school, which I didn't know. And so even that, knowing that through my school experience, it was hard to connect with my classmates. Through all that journey, though, there was one person that really um, just popped up. Through We had the same major, and we became really, really good friends till this day. I still try to keep in touch with her, but I owe her my college experience because she's another Latina, and we would be going to the taqueria, and she would be like, "Come on, I'm hungry," and I said, "Okay," but I knew that I wasn't going to buy anything because I didn't have the money. And she would say, she would notice, and she would say, "Come on, I got you." And so, literally, for 3 years, she basically blessed me by inviting me to different places, and she would pay and pick up the tab for me. And so, honestly, like, going through that and reflecting, she was one of the key people that I believe got me through school, because I was always looking forward to being with her. And then I realized that she was blessing me abundantly by saying, "I'll pick up the tab."
And that is, let me just say, that's such an important thing to share, because sometimes we don't know. And the fact that, like, when you're telling this story, I could see how emotional you're getting,
Hmm.
but I also can see the appreciation in your face as
Right.
well, because you can tell that she obviously just, she did it in a way that wasn't going to make you feel bad. Like, oh, come on, let's go. Let's don't worry about it, instead of like, how some people, they're like, don't worry, I'll get it type of thing. But it was obviously because she knew she could, and she wanted
Right.
you to be there with her in that moment. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that we forget about, right? We forget to, I think in this moment of what's happening, we're remembering our blessings, we're remembering the things that we have, and we're remembering sharing. I had an experience the other day because I've not been able to find toilet paper.
Oh, yeah.
I have only a couple of rolls left, but I'm walking and I see a couple coming from CVS as I'm walking to CVS. And I'm like, hey, do you have any toilet
Okay.
paper? Or did they have any toilet paper there? They're like, no, they're all out. But we went to this other place and they have toilet paper. And I was like, oh, okay, awesome. And they pull out a roll of toilet because they were just selling single rolls. Here, do you want a roll? I'm like, no, 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 it's
Wow.
okay, it's okay. And they're like, no, we were able to get, however, the max, because it was between two people, we were able to get the maximum what we could get. Here, let us give this to you. And oh, hey, we were able to get some paper towels. Here, I'm like, no, 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 it's okay. And they're like, no, 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 really. And it's not out of not being able to afford paper towels or toilet paper. It's just the idea of it being so, like, scarce to find right now. And these people told total strangers.
Wow.
I have no idea what their names are. I have no idea where they live. We were just passing by and I just asked them if they had, and they blessed me with it. And it was just like, and I can imagine, like, in a time of need, when when you feel so alone, that makes you not feel alone, you know?
Right. I
So
always
I love
think
that you're
that there's
sharing that.
power. Yeah. I always think that there's power in kindness. And it's beautiful that you share that, because it's a true testament to what is evolving through the experience that we're living through right now, I believe.
Yeah.
Just a reminder that kindness goes a long way. And when you think that somebody doesn't need something, it's most likely they do. And so, going through the experience of having someone play an important part of my college experience and doing that for me as adulthood, I always tried to take that attitude of, where is it that I could bless somebody? It's not always easy, because I feel like we get lost in, just daily life and stress, or anything that just comes with living, right?
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful to watch through Instagram or Facebook stories flood my feed of how people are just coming together. There was a story posted, I believe it was on Instagram, about someone just going to the park and finding a bag of lemons. So apparently somebody picked their lemon tree and just left a bag of
Oh,
lemons all throughout the park.
I love that. Yes, it's definitely giving us these opportunities to bless one another and to remember what we have. So, like I said, I'm so glad you shared that story. So, time has come. You've graduated. You have a degree in photography and art education. Did you go directly into grad school, or did you start working? Because you worked as a teacher for a little bit, right? What was that path to be able to kind of go through teaching and get your graduate degree?
So it was a very interesting path. And I ended up actually not working in the field that I studied, which was really hard, because I feel like it was costly to me to even get that degree, right? So what had happened is that when I came back home, I was too overqualified to find a job at, JC Penney or Picture People back then. And then I was too underqualified to work for a studio. And a lot of this photography studios in town, they had such a tight grip on the community that it was really hard to tap into. And so I got a job basically because my student loan was about to go into the repayment plan. And so I thought, oh dear, I need to find something quickly, because I don't know how I'm going to pay bill. And so I found a opportunity to work for a local nonprofit for kids in crisis. And so I ended up being there for 5 years. And in those 5 years, I got promoted fairly quickly. And I was encouraged to go back to school to take some educational classes to help me get a bump in pay, because they needed different permits for the people that worked there. And because I highly enjoyed that and I did that, I had some additional schooling. I ended up getting hired with our county. And with our county, I ended up being there for 10 years working in the Head Start program. And in there, during that time, is where I got my master's in organizational leadership.
Wow, that's so. I mean, there's so many people I know that don't necessarily work in their degree, like what they got a degree in. But it's so interesting to hear what that story is. So, at what point did your perspective kind of grow and change and again evolve, and you thought you needed to be focused on something bigger than yourself? Because obviously you're already focused on things that are bigger than yourself, working in
Right.
the things that you were. But at some point, your vision had to kind of get way bigger and way wider to end up doing and launching all of these other things that you're doing. What do you feel like the switch was?
Well, the switch was definitely being a Mary Kay consultant.
Really?
Yes, out of all things, I always joke, I didn't think that I would grow up to be a Mary Kay consultant out of all things, but it happened, and actually will be a consultant this year, 11 years.
Oh wow.
And so I've always loved doing it, and actually through being a consultant with them, I paid for a good chunk of my student loans. I have cleared my student credit card debt. So all my credit cards that were associated with student loans and books and all that was paid for, thanks to Mary Kay. And so when I started to get introduced to the life of an entrepreneur, I started to see that life can be so much bigger. And so I was seeing these women earn like six figures just by selling skincare and makeup. And so for a hot minute there, I really was doing a side hustle that was producing a lot of income where I got to a place where I actually developed a nest egg in my savings account, which is something that my parents never taught me. And so I began to think like there's my heartstrings started to get pulled and thought there's something to this about being an entrepreneur and doing something that you love and getting paid for it. And it slowly started to develop to me being a part of this community. And I was trying to find a way to grow my network and be able to meet more women that I can bless with them feeling more confident. And I knew that through this company, my confidence level was up the roof. And then the income that it gave me, I was hooked. And so for
Well,
a
yeah.
long yeah, for a long time I was working not only my full-time job, but I was doing this on the side. And mind you, the experience of going through college and having two jobs and going to school, I basically mimicked that in adulthood in my professional career. And so to me, it really wasn't exhausting because I had built that foundation already. Plus, I loved it. And then I had some phenomenal mentors in the company that I thought, wow, I can really give this gift to other women. I wasn't sure if it was going to be something that would develop into a solid professional career, but I just kept doing it year after year, and slowly I started paying off different bills and building that nest egg and loving the opportunity to just make others feel more confident, especially if they had a job interview. I highly enjoyed that. And so through that, I started to realize there was this whole plethora of amazing individuals in our community. And I started to among them. And in 2016, I may be wrong, I got recognized in our local newspaper in the Modesto Bee for being 20 under 40 of upcoming local leaders. And so that really was a tipping point for me because and it's not that I feel like as a Latina, it's hard to have that recognition because I still want to feel like I want to honor my humbleness and not brag about it. But eventually, it makes me want to talk about it more because we should talk about it.
Yeah.
And that really was the turning point I feel in my career where I said, wait a minute, like I'm getting invited to being part of different boards. I'm getting invited to different galas. Like this was a whole new world for me that I didn't even know existed. And I loved all the good that was happening, in the middle of it. And so that was really the beginning of me trying to challenge myself to just go past my own limitations and my own fears and my own insecurities and to see how much more I can take the gift of just sharing my story and following those heartstrings that were calling me to do different things. And so I started to follow that and really lead with the thought that I can bless others by one, simply sharing my story, and two, doing something in service.
So is that what led you to found Chicana Inc? And why don't you let people who are listening know what the focus of Chicana Inc is? Um, what you're looking to do with that?
Yeah, so I started to develop my company probably around the same time that I got my first recognition. And I started to honor my roots, and I really wanted it to do three things: to empower, educate, and equip my Latina community, because I know how much it was a struggle for me to just get noticed, to be amongst a community who was already tight knit and that didn't look like me. And so I started to see the challenge as an opportunity to help other Latinas that possibly were going through the same things that I had been through in the past, or that wanted to tap into things that I was doing but didn't know how to. I remember going through our Leadership Modesto cohort, which is a very coveted cohort here in our community through our local Chamber of Commerce. And I remember I had a friend come up to me, and she said, "Domenica, I saw the pictures that were posted all over social media with you and your cohort, and you literally are the only female of color and person of color in that group. How did you get through that?" And I want to do that, but I'm too nervous. Like, I'm not going to be good enough. Like, how did you end up there? And so I had to stop and take a breath, because even though in the moment I realized that, but I guess it really didn't sink in until that person came up to me and pointed that out. And so the pictures that she was referring to was that our class was the first class that raised over $60,000 for a local park to be rejuvenated, and really, we added new equipment for the kids in the community. And so the press got wind of it, and we got a lot of exposure. And so those pictures had been released the night before, and I was at a local mixer when she approached me and was asking about it. And I told her that for that very reason is why we need to be in the things that we think that where we don't belong, for visibility.
We need to take
And
up space.
right. And it was a beautiful moment. I was never once made to feel less than. I was invited to a lot of seats at the table. You know, the people in that cohort are some of the most beautiful souls that I absolutely love that I was a part of this group, because they still invite me places, they still make me feel included. And I started to realize that if I started to push myself and put myself in places where I thought I wasn't going to belong, then I'd be losing on these experiences that I feel like were gifts that need to be shared. And so that's how Chicana Inc. really evolved, when I started to realize like this message really needs to be spread. And if I push myself in a good way, and that I could give that gift to others where they can realize like, well, she's doing it, then I can too.
That's awesome. Well, all of this has led to a recent speaking gig at Harvard University, which I think is
Right.
so awesome. How did that come like how did that come about? I want to hear, how did that come about? How did that make you feel? Like that is like a huge thing. So first, congratulations on that. Now
Thank you.
still give me the chisme on how that happened.
Yo te digo, I will tell you. And so it's been through building this community. It really has. I have grown a social media presence and a presence in my community for just being authentic and staying true to the mission of just telling your story and telling our stories inclusively, and really not excluding anyone as well, and just sharing that message that we can honor our roots and really thrive when we do that. And it's something that I feel is being lost in our society by not speaking about our parents and speaking about the farm workers that are in our life, or the, just the heritage that we have, especially with the roots of Mexico or any other country, and just really embracing who we are through what our ancestors have been through. And so I really hone in on the skill of trying to put that message through Instagram. And so I believe because of that, I was approached with opportunity to speak at Harvard at a Latina conference. And so the
So do you
conference,
mind if I ask like who reached out to you in regards to this?
okay, so the conference is the LEAD conference. And so it's a conference that was developed from the Latino students that attend Harvard. There's such a
Okay.
small population out there of Latino students that attend this institution that they decided to create a conference where they would invite other Latina women to come from different colleges and including the ones that currently exist at Harvard. And they put a conference together. Um, the conference, this past conference that happened, there was 300 Latinas in attendance from a couple of different states. And it was beautiful to watch that they made themselves available and they found opportunities to be there. And so the team from the LEAD conference found me through Instagram and we engaged in a conversation. I got curious to see what was it, if the message aligned with what I was trying to put out here in California. And definitely it did. And I joke when I'm getting asked, well, how was Harvard? And how did that happen? And I say, well, I'm not Brene Brown or Oprah. Like, I had to dish out money to make myself be present there. I had to pay for the airplane ticket. I had to pay for the hotel, my food. And it's a student-led conference. And so, they weren't able to have that available for their speakers. And so what was more important is that that those funds go to the students. And so I had no problem, flying myself out there. And it was important to me to do it as well because I feel like through our mission, my personal mission statement to just empower, educate, and equip Latinas, that it has no boundaries, that we could really put our message out there and we can make ourselves available in order to share stories and have them walk away with knowing that there's a tribe of other women that are there for them, even though they don't see them or they haven't met them yet, but we are here, we are present, and we're here to elevate them and help them. And really the message throughout the conference was, we're here, we're waiting for you. Call us, Instagram us, Facebook us. There's a million ways to get a hold of us.
Just to connect, truly connect and create a bigger, better, larger way for us to all be represented.
Right.
That's, I love hearing that. That's so awesome. So what are you striving for next? What's the next thing that you're like looking towards?
Well, I was really excited to be picked to be a TEDx speaker at San Jose State University.
Yay, I'm great. I got to clap. Yay, that's so awesome.
Thank you. That really, I got so emotional when that happened because that was modern, that is where I lived such a time period of my life that was really hard, and I had to really work hard to get through that time period. And the things that I've had lived, when I attended school, and knowing that there was a point in my life where I was, eating a Napoleon ice cream from the student store because I couldn't afford money. And then here I am about to be a speaker,
Girl, I have chills. I have chills right now. This is so freaking awesome. I literally have chills.
I know. So I'm very excited about that. Obviously, with the things that are happening right now, it got postponed, but my spot is still there when the organizers are able to, release it to the public again. And I just thought it's going to be a good opportunity to make my message stronger. And I'm going to be speaking about the Latina revolution.
Oh, yay. Okay, I can't wait for that to happen because I need to know. I need to watch everything. Okay, so there's a few questions that I ask everybody, and then we go to like the fun questions. What do you wish you would have known when you started out?
Okay. Can you say that one more time?
What do you wish you would have known when you started out? Whether it's starting out in your career, whether it's starting out in school, or whether it's starting out launching Chicana Inc., kind of however you want to take that, what do you wish you would have known?
I wish I would have known to be present in the moment, which is ironic because I believe that because of what's going on in our situation, I feel like that message is being given to humanity.
Right.
And it's right. It's been at the forefront lately because of our quarantine and the lack of being able to just connect, with those that are important to us. And so, but I realized that early on, and I tried to put that at the forefront in my professional career when I started to reflect back on everything that I've gone through, is that I didn't get to enjoy my college experience because I was busy working. I didn't get to enjoy my professional career because I was trying to just make myself present. I would take on a project that they would ask me to. I would pitch ideas. For example, I led our children's festival in our county for 3 years. And so having all these extra projects just so I can show up in the field that I was in um, didn't give me the opportunity to enjoy it.
Right.
And so really, I wish somebody would have told me, as you progress in life, make sure that you're just present in the moment and that you're enjoying it.
Nice. What are you curious about right now?
What I am most curious right now is, and again, I think this is really aligned because of what's going on in the world right now, is self care. And I think, especially um, in the Latino community, that is something that is very important with, diabetes being so predominant. It's really made me evaluate and look into what are natural things that I can do to keep myself healthy and keep those that I love healthy as well.
And and you can take this either personally or professionally, what is something that you've
Okay.
failed at that you have learned from?
Oh, that's a very, very good question because I feel like I've failed a lot of stuff. Um, but if I have to pick one thing that I failed at, I'd have to say that um, it took me a long time to not find my voice. And so I feel like for a very long time, I would put that secondary. I wouldn't speak up. And I feel like I wasn't good at really showing up as myself or honoring myself and what I felt because of the way that I grew up and how, having that traditional parent dynamic of, a dad who was very like just dominant in the household and you don't speak until you're spoken to, that I wish I would have honored who I was and loved who I was a lot sooner than being in my adulthood.
Whew, okay. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that? What website, social, how can they get in touch with you if they want to do that?
Okay, definitely. So my handles are pretty easy. I'm really easy to find. So Chicana Inc. on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And then for me directly, it's just Domenica Escatel. And if you Google me, you will find me.
Yes. All right. You can shake it off and ask the fun questions.
Yes.
What is your favorite word?
My favorite word is poderosa.
And tell people what poderosa means and why is that your favorite word?
Powerful. Yeah, I actually I did a photography project called Mujer Poderosa because I want to give the opportunity to other women to just have this powerful photo that they could hold on to and look at when life wasn't good and remind themselves that they are powerful, that they have that inside of them. And so that is my favorite word.
And I love to see that you're bringing back the photography into that.
Yes.
Love that. What is a dream that scares you?
Oh, a dream that scares me. Honestly, this is going to be completely hilarious, even though it is really frightening, is traveling internationally. I have yet to do that, but I will do it. I know that I will. And then it's not because of what's going on right now. It's just the thought of being in that airplane for a couple of hours.
Now, I don't think that is silly. I think that's natural because that is those are long things.
Yeah.
Okay, if I'm going to Modesto and I have to, or your hometown,
Okay.
and I have to go to one place, where am I going and what am I ordering?
All right. Eastgate China House has the most incredible Asian infused menu ever. I love their orange chicken and rice. It is the simplest thing on their menu, but is the most yummy thing. It is my happy place. I love ordering it on a Friday night, just taking it home. So that is definitely a must.
And finally, finalmente, porque we have to, right?
Yes.
Wine, red or
Claro.
white, and do you have a specific type that you like?
You know, actually, I have to say rosé.
Okay, I forgot.
Does
So
that
usually
count?
I
It's
do
very
add rosé
pink.
in there, and I totally forgot. Do you have a
You
specific
know, I
type
kind
of
of joke
rosé?
because right, no, I love all of it. I actually love all wine, red wine, white wine. Um, but again, it kind of goes back to where we started the Chardonnay. You know, it's a white wine.
Yeah.
This particular one is super smooth and semi a little sweet. At least I feel like it is, but I'm not a wine. Love it.
Well, Dominica, I appreciate you coming on today. I know that we're in just really weird times, so it was so lovely to be able to see you kind of face to face, even if it's through Zoom, and just be able to hear your story and be able to share your story. It's so appreciated. I think so many people are able to relate to what you said and the information that Dominica had relayed. We'll also make sure to include in the show notes. So until next time, mi gente, saludos.